They're going live on YouTube with Jennifer and Julia to do some talk about tools. There we go. Hi, everyone. It is I, Jennifer, from Little Metal Foxes. And
Julia from Little Metal Foxes.
hi, friend. How are you?
I'm getting over a cold.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
so many people got sick this holiday. I hope everybody is feeling better. And
Yes. It
um,
was just a cold. You
yep,
know, we went to the aquarium. We went and had dim sum and went to the aquarium, and it was awesome. We went to the Seattle Aquarium's new building and got to see their new
cool.
space and the cool sharks and all that kind of stuff. The shark in training. Um, but yeah, I think there were a lot of people. There were a lot of people in the after Christmas, like, oh, let's go to the aquarium with all the kids. And there were a number of people coughing, so I think I caught a cold.
Hey, kids. So send us some love. Hit that like button. Also, subscribe because that way you know when we're live and we can share all these great tool tips with you, the people that we
Me.
love so much. So, Julia, over
Yes.
the holidays,
Yes.
amazing happened. Santa came to see me.
I know. Santa was
And
good to you.
Santa was very good to me this year, and I had this tool in my cart, and Santa saw it in my cart and ordered it and stuck it in my stocking, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I totally forgot about this thing." Seriously, totally forgot.
And then
And
you told me, and I had to buy one.
yes, so now we both have matching ones. So this is a tubing stretcher, people. It is
Yes.
super cool. And it is, if you want to be cool too, you need a tube stretcher. That's all there is to it. So this thing is it's a really solid aluminum handles and frame
Mhm.
with
Looks
a
like yours is a little more solid and beefy than mine. I'm looking at the handles of yours, look like a little more beefy. I don't know, maybe not. I mean, they're slightly different. The designs are slightly different. Like the insides of yours are cut away and the inside of mine is solid.
yeah,
This
yours is
part does seem to be pretty much the same
yeah,
for both of them.
yeah. So
Looks like your spring is in a slightly different place. See how my spring is here?
oh yeah, no, this is an integral spring and it's really solid. This is like spring on the inside. But this thing, my friends, goes from 4 millimeters on this end to 20 millimeters at the largest spot. And
Mm.
what I was really excited about with this is that I could take a piece of tubing and stick it on here. And actually, this one has gone up to here, I think. Yep. So this one has been stretched up so that, but check it out. Lovely that little stretch is. And what I can nice tight fit. So I've got this really beautiful little
I can't pin you because I can't spotlight you because I'm not the co-host.
oh, here. Let me make you co-host.
I
Whoa.
came in as myself today instead of coming in as Little Metal Foxes.
Make a co-host. Here you go. Ah, let's do that.
All right. Then I can spotlight you so that then people can see you
Check that.
big and you can see the beauty that is this connection.
It's just so lovely. So it makes this, it doesn't just flare the tubing. It does a nice cylinder stretch, right?
Hmm.
Nice little like blended area that goes down to the smaller version, but
Hmm.
it stretches it. I can make really nice fitting like caps for tubes. So if you're doing something like little containers, brilliant. So if you're teaching and you've got students and you want to do something like making like little saw blade containers or little drill bit
Hmm.
containers, or you want to make little potion bottles or something like that. This, what a great little solution it is because it gives you a tight fit. I mean, you can make it even bigger, but I mean, that's not even annealed. This is just KNS right off the rack that I did that with. Um, and I was like, how small can I go? Teeny tiny. So this is about 4 millimeter tubing, I think. And I realized as I was working with the 4 millimeter tubing that the potential for doing stone settings with this is crazy because a lot of times you've got a stone that's just it's a little too small. And if you can stretch open that tubing just a little bit, it would fit. And if you use something like like a punch or, you know, that kind of mandrel, it's going to taper it. And you don't want that necessarily.
Hmm. Hmm.
For tube settings, or if you need something that's like telescoping tubing, here's your solution, right? So if I was doing like a little tube set and wanted that inside area for the stone to sit on, I could
Hmm.
totally make it
Like if you're tube setting cabochons and you need to have
right.
the little second shelf for the cabochon to sit on,
Yeah,
you could
or even
stretch.
faceted stones or
Hmm.
smooth cut stones. Yeah, so it would work for any of those. So I was just like, this is a great little tool. And then Julia, your idea is just brilliant because you were saying that you
Oh,
wanted,
and you know what? Let me see if I have a gallery wire ring here.
yeah, check
I
it
may
out.
have some samples.
So yeah, Julia mentioned when I was showing her this that using when you're doing gallery wire for your bezels, you want to match it up really nice, but sometimes it's a little too small, right?
Right. So I was trying, I have a sample that has a ring here that has some gallery wire.
Right,
So when I say gallery wire, I'm talking about this kind of thing,
right.
right? So it's got all this decorative stuff going on. And because there's so much pretty on the outside of this, right? Like, first of all, these little parts are really delicate, the little parts that you bend over, but then there's a pattern on the bottom. And when you cut the gallery wire, you have to cut it so that it matches the pattern. So you have to cut right between two of those little spikes so that then when the two ends to come together, you have the pattern continues. The problem with that is, and this is almost always sterling silver, and it's always a fairly thick, the gallery wire is. Jeff Klein's gallery wire, same thing. It's a little bit thicker. And this would work great for that too.
Thickness too,
But
keep it rolled, you know.
exactly. So because it's a little thicker, you have to take that into account when you're making the size of your stone. But you almost always end up having a bezel that's just a tiny bit smaller than the stone, which is actually good because it's easier to stretch it than make it smaller, right? But stretching it was always a real pain in the butt. And now with this thing, stretching it'll be a piece of cake,
Well,
right? Because you want to stretch it from the inside only. You don't want to put any pressure on the outside. And the technique I would always use in the past was to use a bezel or a ring mandrel and a swage block like this, and
yeah,
put the ring mandrel through the bezel and then put it in one of these notches and then hammer on the top of the ring mandrel, and it would support the little teeth of the crown on the wood, which it worked, but you had to be super gentle, and you had to tap one way and then you had to rotate the thing around and tap the other side because you're only ever tapping. And
yeah,
it was always tricky. And it would still be slightly tapered, so then you would have to take it off and you'd have to stretch
right.
it the other way. You
Oh,
know,
parallel. So you've got a nice little cylinder,
I
right?
know, right? So if you work with bezel wire, gallery wire at all, because regular plain flat bezel wire, easy peasy to stretch, right? You just roll it with you can
Well,
use the,
no, even on regular bezel wire, if you're rolling it, you know, on a surface and trying to stretch it, you can get it wonky. I mean, if you
yeah,
put
that's true.
pressure on one side or the other, suddenly your bezel's not flat anymore.
That's
So
true.
this
That's
guy
true.
will like, and you can be really gentle about squeezing this and opening it up. So the thing that I realized as we were talking about bezels, I think, was that I'm like, wait a minute, what about rings? What about ring stretching? I was like, wait, what? And so I had a couple of rings. This is it's like a twisted square wire, which are, you know, notoriously hard to get bigger because you can't tap them on a ring
Right,
machine.
because if you tap them, you take out, again, you
Right,
destroy the
right,
pretty because the
right,
pretty is the sharp edges of where it's been twisted. Yeah.
right. So this one I've taken from a 6.5 to a 7.5, and it just you just like take it and roll, 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 squeeze, you know, tweak, 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 tweak until you get it up to the size that you want. And I've easily stretched a couple of rings that are, you know, twisted wires, square wires, braided wires, and like love knots and things like that with this. And I've been easily able to take them up a full size easily. And I probably could take them up farther if I needed to. But, you know, I've got a Durston ring stretcher that's, you know, a few $100s that I use for stuff like this. This is $16.99 on Amazon. And my Durston ring stretcher doesn't go down to 4 millimeters. So, and it's tapered. So this gives me so many possibilities for 16 bucks that it's like I think every jewelry studio needs one of these. And especially like a lot of classroom situations, because this is just, I mean, it's an industrial.
Oh my God, if I had had this
Oh,
when I was teaching in person beginning jewelry classes, would have solved so many problems for my students
right?
with the bezels. Yeah. And other things,
Yeah,
and also, yeah, like making lids for things and whatnot. Yeah.
absolutely. So, I mean, making things that are like, little connections without having to solder,
Hmm.
an additional ring on the outside, or if you're, doing, like the telescoping tubing, but as far as like a connection for little containers, I love this. And, even if you're doing something where you're trying to join two pieces of tubing together, and you don't want to have to like find one that's right size to fit on the outside and then have to solder it on and like or make one that fits onto the inside and it's just exactly the right size. This is so much easier. It's so much easier. And yeah, it's just one of those weird coincidental little like, what does this thing do? Oh, I'm sure if I talked to a plumber and went, I wonder if there's a way to stretch out tubing, he'd be like, oh yeah, I've got one of these things. I live by it. Wait, ting, yeah, pull it out of your pocket.
Well,
Um,
and it's funny because I think we were talking in Open Studio recently about one of the things I love is the cross-pollination of different disciplines and using a tool that wasn't originally designed for something like Leslie Perino uses the embossing folders, which were designed for paper, for embossing paper, but she embosses very thin copper and then enamels on them, right? Like you have to have some level of experience with a an area of endeavor, a field of endeavor, to be able to see the potential for something when you see the crossover,
right.
right? Um,
Just
so yeah.
seeing simple hardware solutions in the studio is always one of my favorite things because
Hmm.
it's like, oh, well, I can make a kiln with flower pots, and I just need a like a
Exactly. Or like taking a binder clip and clipping it onto the back end of a crosslock tweezers to keep it from rolling over,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
it's like, the binder clips which are coming from the office supply side of things, right? They weren't designed for being used to stabilize tools in the jewelry studio. I use them all the time now for
oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
have a whole selection of different sizes clipped on the side of my jewelry soldering station.
the ventilation hood, I'm like, I mean,
Exactly. Exactly. The ventilation hood.
where what can I use for a ventilation hood because I don't want to spend a couple
Well,
of
it's
hundred.
right there. Show them. I can see it. It's in the bottom.
Ventilation hood. We talked about this
That you talked
before,
about last week, I
and
think.
it's a paint
It's a
pan,
paint pan.
you know, and this makes a great hood over my solder station. It's exactly the right size and shape to fit right over my, over,
Hmm.
and when it's not in use, I can put it away. So it's lightweight. I had two in the studio, and of course I went and bought another one because I didn't know I had two. But I was like, when I came back over, I was like, oh,
Because the best is being able to reuse something you already have.
I know. Well, I have one for casting that I put everything in, which I love.
Mm.
Love using that for casting. And then the other one's for paint.
So fair. They both have their uses.
They
And now
do.
you have a third one, which has its use as well.
It's a big hole in it that wouldn't be good for either one of those things. So anyway,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, I don't, you probably could find this at like Home Depot in the plumbing
Oh,
department
probably.
or
Yeah. I
electric.
mean, I ended up just buying mine off of Amazon, but
So
I try to patronize my local hardware stores and local plumbing supply and local office supply and all of that as much as I can.
absolutely. So probably Ace Hardware would have something like this in the plumbing
Very likely.
department. So there this one, like I said, is like it was $16.99. I got it next day. It was just, right there. It goes from 4 millimeters on this end to the biggest one is 20 millimeters. And this one was like $16.99. I know we were looking and comparing them in Open Studio yesterday, and there was one that was like $12. Same sort of design, but it went from a 1/4 inch up
Mhm.
to like 7/8 or an inch. So it didn't start as small as this one does. So the thing I like about this one, the couple of extra bucks that I spent on this one, is great because
More choices, more
yeah,
options,
like
more
and the
sizes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for small tubing, if you're doing like 4 and 5 millimeter stones, you know,
Oh, so are you going to use it? Are you going to use it for your backsetting stones class that's coming up?
maybe so, yeah. But I'm
You
definitely gonna
use
put
the
that
Jeff Klein, you use the some of the Jeff Klein
gallery.
bezel gallery wire for
Yeah,
that, for your sample one. I don't know whether you do that as a regular thing.
I don't usually, but that's actually a really good point. So being able to, stretch out the gallery wire. So for bezels, being able to stretch out tubing for tube setting, being able to stretch out tubing for containers, for being able to stretch out rings. I mean, just for the rings alone, or for jump rings alone, this would be, hallelujah. How many times have you done jump rings and you're like, oh, they all need to be the same size and they're not. And oops. So,
Yeah,
um,
that doesn't usually happen to me, but
no, I know that's true.
I have a different relationship with jump rings than most people,
Very true. That's very true. Okay.
which is,
Well,
which is what it is.
there you go. I hope you love it. Hit that like button, people.
I
Like,
do. I do love it. I do love it. And I love that now we both have one.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, we got to be twinsies. So, like, hello. I know the first thing I thought when I saw this is like, I need to make a pap smear appointment. But oh yeah,
yeah, which are important, ladies. You should
right.
get those.
So yeah,
Mhm,
make sure you get that pap smear and check that out and get one of these. So
mhm.
we got a bunch of fun classes coming up this year. We wish you a happy 2025, that all things go smoothly for you in your studio and you're productive and creative. We've got casting classes, stone setting classes, pearl knotting classes, enameling classes all coming up, and we look forward to seeing you all there. And other words, join us for a class or two.
I
And
know.
yeah, and subscribe so you know when we're here doing Tool Tip Tuesdays. And I think we're almost up to what, 200 or something now. So
I don't know. We probably have, yeah, we were like at 150 or 60 or yeah, probably. I mean, we've been doing this for
years,
5 years. Let's see.
years, yeah, a few years. So anyway, all right, my friends, next week, and we're gonna have some guest people joining us. Hopefully, we'll have some people from Lindstrom and maybe
Maybe when?
Brian Bake. Maybe we'll get him.
Maybe. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Yes.
But yeah,
We're trying to line up a few,
few
high
guest
profile
artists,
guests.
few
Yeah.
guest people. So yeah, we'll have some more guest people on soon. So stay tuned. All right, thanks everybody, and you guys have a great creative day in your studio. Bye.